There are some truths that history doesn't erase, hides them. Not because they're lies, but because they're dangerous. It's too dangerous to say aloud. These are the truths that unravel comfort, that threaten to shatter the fragile illusions we build society upon. They don't scream, they whisper coldly, clearly, cutting through delusion like a scalpel through silk, and one man had the courage to whisper them. Not out of hatred, not for vengeance, but with chilling precision. His name, Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher unafraid of the shadows beneath our desires. He didn't idealize women. He didn't hate them either. Studied them closely, quietly, not with the eyes of a lover, but with the focus of a scientist in a hostile terrain. What he discovered wasn't just uncomfortable, it was brutal. So brutal, in fact, that even today, most men would rather cling to their illusions than face the truths he unearthed. But if you're watching this, chances are something inside you already suspects what the world tries so hard to deny. You've felt the confusion. You've seen the sudden shift, the light in her eyes dimming, the warmth turning cold, the affection vanishing without warning. And you've asked yourself, was any of it real? Schopenhauer had an answer. And once you hear his truth, whispered across time, you may never see women or love the same way again. Part 1. The mask she wears understanding. The illusion Schopenhauer didn't begin with blame. He began with observation, he noticed. Something most men ignore, that women present an image soft, delicate, emotionally intuitive. An image carefully constructed not necessarily to deceive, but to survive. Behind this appearance, he uncovered something far more ancient and instinctual, a kind of intelligence, not honed in classrooms or boardrooms, but in the primal arena of survival, a tactical instinct, a survival mechanism, what he called the instinct for preservation. According to Schopenhauer, this instinct made women masters of camouflage, apt at blending vulnerability with calculated strategy. He famously wrote that the fundamental flaw in a woman's character is a lack of sense for justice. That sounds harsh until you understand what he meant. He didn't mean women are immoral or malevolent. He meant that their moral compass is tuned not to fairness, but to results, to survival. This is why she can ghost you days after whispering, "I love you." Why she can rewrite shared history to justify her departure. Why she can swear you were everything till someone better comes along. In Schopenhauer's view, a female innocence is not the absence of danger, it is its most dangerous form. Why? Because it lowers your guard, disarms you. Men fall for the performance, the sweet voice, the infectious laugh, the softness that seems to promise safety. But behind the smile lies something far older than love: survival. Unlike men, women lack brute strength. They don't dominate with weapons or war. So, they evolve to dominate differently through persuasion, through emotional leverage, through influence. They don't need to force you to provide. They get you to want to. They don't fight for power. They guide you into handing it over. And all the while, you think you're leading, that you're choosing, but you're not. You've simply mistaken sweetness for sincerity. And that's the trap most men never see coming. Part 2. Romantic love is a beautiful lie. Let's go deeper into the very core of why so many men end up emotionally devastated by love. To Schopenhauer, love was not personal. It was not even romantic, he wrote. The ultimate aim of all love affairs is actually more important than all other aims in human life, and is therefore quite worthy of the profound seriousness with which everyone pursues it. That aim is the composition of the next generation. Let's break that down. You're not falling in love because her soul speaks to yours. You're falling because biology is whispering louder than logic. Beneath all the romantic songs and poetic promises, your body has one goal: reproduction. That's it. Love isn't spiritual, it's strategic. And her biology? It's not floating on the clouds. It's scanning, analyzing, calculating, scanning. For the strongest male, the most resourceful provider, the most emotionally manipulable man she can draw in, she doesn't love you because of your essence, your values, or your soul. She loves you because, for now, you fit the role her instincts are searching for. That's why your jokes once made her laugh, why your quirks once seemed endearing. Why your flaws were cute instead of too much? Suddenly, as if overnight, everything changed. You're now distant, too emotional, not enough. But did you change? No. Her instinct did. Schopenhauer knew this truth long before terms like red pill, MGTOW, or manosphere became part of the modern lexicon. He didn't learn it through heartbreak or betrayal. He observed it through the cold lens of nature, like a biologist examining patterns in mating behavior. To him, love wasn't divine. It was nature's masterstroke, a trick, a biologically programmed illusion designed to make you believe you found the one. But the truth, she was never. Yours? Not really. She was a temporary vessel for nature's plan. Extract value, reproduce, and move on. You think she's heartless? No, she's efficient. Coldly efficient. You thought love meant forever, didn't you? It does until you stop serving a purpose. The moment your value drops, the connection dissolves. Gone like a light switch. The dinners, the long walks. The laughter that once filled your ears, erased not because she suddenly changed, but because your usefulness expired. And the men who don't understand this, they're the ones who suffer endlessly. They grieve. They write tear-stained poems. They scroll through old photos. They wait for a text that will never come. Why? Because they believe they've lost love. But no, brother, you didn't lose love. You lost your utility, and that was the quiet warning. Schopenhauer tried to whisper long before our modern era began to realize what had always been hidden in plain sight. Part 3. Marriage. The most polished cage ever built. Now let's step into the grandest illusion of them all. One that's sold to boys before they can even spell the word commitment. The dream of the castle. The perfect queen. The fairy tale ending? You know it. Marriage. Schopenhauer didn't just question the institution, he dismantled it. Not with bitterness, but with brutal clarity. He saw marriage not as a sacred bond, but as a well-crafted trap. A trap where the bait is love, the purpose is reproduction, and the end result? Lifelong servitude under the illusion of partnership. Most men walk into marriage like it's a victory lap. She said, yes, you won. You're chosen. You're building. A future, right? Wrong? You're signing a contract. It's one where the power slowly, silently shifts away from you. In dating, you had leverage. You had options. She competed. She gave. But in marriage, the competition ends. She already won the prize, you. And now the rules change. Schopenhauer observed something many men only realize far too late, once commitment is secured. Her behavior doesn't shift instantly, but it does shift. Gradually, affection fades. Physical intimacy declines. Expectations rise. Demands accumulate. And most dangerously, you become trapped emotionally. And financially, you are no longer cherished for who you are. You're valued for what you provide. And if he fails to meet expectations, he loses everything. Not just her, but access to his children, half his wealth, and years of what could have been peace. Schopenhauer didn't see this as a tragic exception. He saw it as the design. It's a system not built for male happiness, but for female security. A system propped up and enforced by laws, courts, and the ever-looming power of public shame. You think she changed after marriage? No, she didn't change. She just stopped pretending because she no longer had to. Marriage, Schopenhauer warned, is not a man's reward. It's often the beginning of his decline. Slowly, quietly, a man's spirit, freedom, and identity begin to erode, not through malice. Walk. I want. I go quite. Irreversible obligations. Part 4. The Great Switch. How women use aging as power here. Something few men ever consider until it's far too late. Time, but not your time hers. Schopenhauer was fascinated by nature's timelines, especially how time dictates the evolution of female behavior. He noticed something chillingly consistent across history, society, and species. A woman's power, especially in the early stages of life, lies in her youth, her beauty, and her effortless ability to attract. When she is young, she doesn't need to argue, manipulate, or control. She doesn't need to say much at all. Her very presence bends the world around her. Her power is passive, but immense. Men compete. Opportunities flow. The world affirms her without question, but time is relentless. Youth fades, features soften. And as attention drifts elsewhere, a transformation begins. The mask changes. Now, instead of seduction, she turns to control. Instead of being chased, she learns to corner. She no longer relies on charm, but on social pressure. She speaks not with sweetness, but with leverage guilt, obligation. Emotional manipulation cloaked in love, the quiet threat of shame. The appeal to family duty or morality. In her youth, she said, "I love you." With age, it becomes, "You owe me." Schopenhauer saw this as a shift, not born from cruelty, but from necessity. As the world's gaze withdraws, she adapts. When the effortless power of attention disappears, she must extract attention through other means. And if you, as a man, fail to recognize this shift, if you keep holding on to the version of her who once attracted you with warmth and charm, you'll find yourself emotionally exhausted, confused, and alone in your own relationship. She's not trying to draw you in anymore. She's trying to preserve her place, and that preservation may come in many subtle forms. Tripping your choices, criticizing your interests, demanding to be the center of every decision you make. Why? Because if she doesn't control the spotlight, she fades. And fading is the one thing she fears more than anything. Part 5. Emotional leverage. Her real power over men. This next part is where most men lose, not in dating, not even in marriage, but in the realm that truly governs their downfall. Emotion. Because she knows something most men don't. Your heart is not your own. She knows how to bend it, bruise it, and rebuild it when it suits her. Schopenhauer broke this down without flinching. He wrote that a woman's life is a history of the affections. Her entire world is shaped by how others, especially men, act to her. What does this mean? It means her currency is not money, it's attention, your approval, your validation, your admiration, your willingness to pursue, to give, to prove yourself. All of this fuels her emotional economy. And the moment she realizes she can control your emotions, she becomes something more dangerous than seductive. She becomes essential to your sense of worth. It starts small. You send a message. She doesn't reply. You check your phone every 5 minutes. You reread the last thing you wrote. Was it too much? Too little? Was the K too cold? Too casual? Suddenly, your mood rises and falls with the sound of a notification. You feel a jolt of happiness when she says, "I miss you," but you feel like you're unraveling when she says nothing at all. This isn't what you thought love would be. This isn't connection. This is emotional dependence. And here's the uncomfortable truth. She engineered it. From the start, every compliment, every moment of affection of it was random. Random sweet texts, the passionate "I need you" followed days later by a flat "I don't feel the spark anymore." These aren't just emotional fluctuations, they're tactics. Like a scientist running an experiment. Like Pavlov's dogs, she trains you. She creates a pattern: reward, then withdrawal, warmth, then cold, tension, then silence. She doesn't do this consciously out of evil. She does it because it works. You begin to chase her affection the way a starving man chases a breadcrumb. You crave her approval. You fear her distance. You no longer ask, "Is she right for me?" You ask, "How can I be enough for her again?" And that right there is the power Schopenhauer warned us about. Not because women are villains. It's not because they're malicious masterminds, but because men are blind to how easily their hearts are turned into levers. blind to how deeply they attach meaning and identity to someone who, in many cases, is simply playing the game better. You want to win? Stop playing her game. Detach your worth from her reaction. Your value cannot live and die with her smile or silence. Part 6. Embrace solitude, or be consumed at this point in the journey. Most men find themselves standing at a crossroad. They've seen behind the mask. They've peeled back the illusion of romance. They've understood the emotional leverage, the quiet manipulation, the fragile dance of validation and rejection. And now one question echoes louder than all others. What do I do with this knowledge? Schopenhauer answered it with brutal simplicity. Walk away, not with bitterness, not with hate, but with solitude. Because as he wrote, a man can be himself only so long as he is alone. Let that sink in. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's liberation. When you are truly alone, you stop performing, you stop chasing, you stop twisting yourself into a shape that fits someone else's expectations. You no longer seek warmth from the same fire that burned you. Instead, you become still. And in that stillness, you reclaim your power. Most men fear solitude because they've been trained since boyhood to measure their worth by how much they're needed by a woman, by a family, by a title like boyfriend, husband, or provider. But Schopenhauer taught the opposite. True power is found in not needing, choosing yourself before anyone else can choose or reject you. In knowing that your mission, your focus, your standards matter more than validation. You're not swiping to feel seen. You're not texting to feel real. You're not sacrificing your dreams just to avoid sleeping alone. You're choosing yourself. And in a world that constantly tells men to serve, to bend, to appease, solitude is the most radical rebellion. It's where your mind sharpens. Clarity returns. Your standards rise, and your heart, once an open wound, becomes something else entirely. A fortress. For Schopenhauer, solitude wasn't a backup plan. It was a requirement. Because only in solitude can a man hear his own voice. Unfiltered, uninfluenced, untamed. Part 7. You were never meant to be tamed. This is where it all comes together. After everything, the illusions of love, the traps of marriage, the slow manipulation through emotion, Schopenhauer left men with one final truth. You were never meant to be tamed. From the very beginning, the world has been working to domesticate men, to strip away the raw edges of your masculinity, to shape you into something more palatable, softer, quieter, obedient. It starts in childhood, reinforced by culture, and rewarded by society. You're taught to comply, to be polite, to suppress your instincts. And at the center of this conditioning, it's not the woman herself, but the idea of her. Not her, but what she represents. The dream, the promise, the beautiful lie. Schopenhauer saw this before most ever dared to speak it. He recognized that romance had become a tool away for society to civilize men, to pull them away from their natural clarity, their independence, their wildness. Love, in its idealized form, was transformed into a leash. The more a man surrenders to that illusion, the more he loses touch with who he truly is. Make no mistake, Schopenhauer wasn't saying never to love, but he warned, never surrender your essence, never give up your mission, never abandon your masculinity, never trade your identity to make yourself more acceptable or more lovable. Because once you do that, once you shrink yourself to fit into someone else's frame, you've already lost not just her, but yourself. You weren't born to beg. You weren't meant to chase endlessly. You weren't designed to shrink, to become small, just to keep someone else comfortable. You were born to create, to explore, to lead, to build, and to stand tall even if you must do so completely alone. That is the man Schopenhauer believed in. Not the hopeless romantic clinging to fairy tales, not the dreamer lost in illusions, but the man who wakes up, who sees the game for what it is, who stops chasing approval and begins building his own world. The whisper still echoes. Yes, now we return to it, the whisper Schopenhauer gave two men nearly 200 years ago, a whisper most men dismissed. a whisper society did everything to silence, but one that still lingers in the hearts of the few men who dared to truly hear it. He whispered, "Know her nature, see through the mask, and above all, remain sovereign." Because in a world built from the ground up to tame you, to break you, to keep you on your knees, the most dangerous thing a man can be is free. And once you've heard that whisper, you can't unhear it. You can't return to sleep. You can't go back to believing the lies that once made you feel safe. But you can become something else. You can become awake, can become clear, can become unbreakable. If this resonated with you, like, comment, and subscribe, because the truth doesn't just hurt, it sets you free. And here on this channel, we don't chase love, chase clarity.